Chapter 1, Inside Iris. Available from Amazon, on Kindle and paperback. Fragmented would be the word I would use to describe Iris when I first met her. Her eyes were like pools of still water that glistened as the clinical white light of the windowless room hit them. Iris was sitting silently at her metallic steel table in her white pyjama-like clothes, barefooted and concentrating intensely on a puzzle that she must have been given earlier that morning. Iris had a tall, slender build, so much so that the clothes she wore looked like they hung on her. Her pale, porcelain skin was perfect, unblemished, and her near-white hair cascaded down over her shoulders with poker-straight lines. Iris's features were what you would call elven. Her face was fine. Her features were small and pointed. The only thing that didn't come across as elven were her perfectly rounded ears that I was sure could hear my heartbeat from across the room. She was real. The girl sat in front of me was something of a legend, a myth I thought was created by conspiracy theorists the world over. Another spectre of the mysterious government, the authorities, who controlled everything it was possible to have influence over. Until that moment, I never believed it. I always had an element of doubt that coursed through my veins, but there she was, living, breathing, and moving, if only ever so slightly, like a creature doing all it can to preserve energy. I stood at the door, watching her in silence and in awe. Iris acted as though I wasn't there. I could well have been a ghost in her presence for all the interest she showed in me. Her attention was solely focused on the puzzle on the table in front of her. Iris's hands moved slowly, with an almost smooth mechanical precision, to move the pieces of shaped wood from one place to the next. The tray I was carrying into the room became a useless prop that I swiftly slid onto another metallic steel table to my left. The sound of the metallic tray on the table stirred Iris from the task that she was focused on, and she looked at me through her brow. The irises of her eyes were such bright silver like mirrors. I felt as though I was being stalked by a big cat, a huntress stalking prey for her young. "You're new." I paused and looked at her. It felt like an age before I could find the power to speak as I looked into her silver-coloured eyes. "Yes, I'm new." This reply almost perplexed her as she cocked her head slightly to one side, her gaze uninterrupted. It remained fixed, locked into my eyes. She was not going to let me off that easily. The tone of Iris's voice was monotonic and smooth, as though she carefully considered every word that was forming in her brain before it entered the world via her mouth. The words gathered pace and mass, like a snowball rolling down a hill, until they were launched to their intended target. "You're nervous being here with me?" "Yes, I am. I'm sorry," I apologised, even though I had no reason to. What little confidence I had coming in through the door had dissipated, like water vapour from a kettle. "Are you always this nervous?" "Sometimes. Normally when I start a new job, it can take me a while to find myself." This comment pricked up Iris's interest in me. She saw something in me that was shiny and new, something she wanted to explore. "Find yourself? That's interesting. If you're not here, where are you?" When Iris asked me that question, I was speechless. How could I answer? I couldn't answer in any way that would be at all satisfactory, even if I wanted to. I knew in the short time that I had been talking to her that she was intelligent, and she would see through many, if not all, answers. It was as though she knew why I was there, that there was something beneath the surface that, if she scratched hard enough in the same place, she could reveal. "I don't know," I answered, hoping it would be sufficient to satisfy this young girl's curiosity. "Neither do I," Iris replied with an emotionless expression that saddened and chilled me to the bone at the same time. Iris went back to her task but continued to elaborate. "I have dreams. Not every night, but when I dream, they feel real. So real they have their own smell, taste and sound. It's like I'm there. People are in my dreams. I can't see their faces. I don't know their names. They're like shadows but warm, like I have a connection with them. I'm happy when I'm there. I smile. I laugh. I am a person I've never been before. I like it. Iris suddenly stopped working at her task. Her hand paused millimeters from the puzzle as she thought for a few seconds before looking up at me through her eyebrows. Then I wake up here and I don't feel. I am this again, and nurses arrive with my medicine and my tasks for the morning. Don't you like your tasks? I like them fine, but just about fine. They occupy me for long enough until they bring me the next set. There was little emotion in Iris's face. She continued to speak with her monotonic, frail voice that sounded like it had just about enough life to leave her mouth and fill the air of an area no larger than the room she was in. Why would she need anything more, considering she never left the room? Iris's hair was just below her shoulders and well brushed, as though the nursing staff who dressed and washed her felt the need to preen her, like a doll in a sterile doll's house. Iris's nails were clipped to a perfect length. Her skin was washed clean and without a mark on it. Iris was perfect, a doll in her very own prison. Do you have anything else to leave for me? No, I replied. I have nothing else. Thank you. I must get on with my tasks. With that, I turned and left, closing the door behind me, quietly so as not to disturb her. Outside the room stood a medical trolley with a selection of needles and vials with printed labels displaying the name Iris. It was somewhat disconcerting that so much of this was meant for a girl so young. I'm sure many of the doctors and nurses who walked the corridors before me had the same feelings when they were carrying out the tests and taking samples from a girl who was just 15 years old and who had been in the institute since she was a young girl. As I reached for one of the drawers at the bottom of the trolley, a doctor turned the corner at the bottom of the corridor and made his way towards me. He was in deep conversation with another nurse, an older lady with cold features, making their way purposefully towards Iris's room. I turned and walked to the elevator beside me and hit the button to go down. The noise of the nurses' and doctors' footsteps got louder as they approached me from down the corridor. The conversation they were having also came into focus. They were discussing how the samples they were to take had to get to the lab for tests immediately. The digits above the door changed, ascending to the floor I was on. I knew the elevator was fast, but to me, in those moments, the digits moved in slow motion. Beads of sweat started to gather and run slowly down my back. With every bead of sweat that gathered, my heart started to beat harder. The elevator bell finally dinged and the door opened. I entered as smoothly and calmly as I could, trying not to draw attention to myself, and pressed the button for the ground floor. As the door slowly closed, the voices neared. Suddenly I heard the nurse, "I swore I set a tray of food on the trolley." The door closed and the lift descended. Chapter 1, Inside Iris. Available from Amazon, on Kindle and paperback. Get your copy today.